Hi everybody, it's TJ with Netpicks and Spotlight Power Trader. I thought I would do a recap video of some of the trades of the day. It was another amazing trading day for Spotlight Power Traders. Yesterday as well. Started really slow, of course, in front of the Fed announcement, but trading on the heels of the announcement proved to be very profitable. And then today, with a surprise result for the retail sales report coming out much better than expected, just pushed the prices in ways that our strategies really like. And of course, you have to remember, when markets are slow, it means that there's going to be some action on the way. Markets fall asleep and then they wake up, and then they fall asleep and then they wake up. And of course, sticking to our trade plan is the key. So let's go through some of our basic trade plans and see what happened today. Beginning with the Russell E-mini. You can see some amazing trades here in Spotlight. The price continues to move nicely, but let's go back to the beginning of the session. Starting at 8:30 Central, you had a short right here at 8:35. Pretty straightforward green trade. Now, just for the record, I personally like to set my crossover filter to 8 instead of 20. Some of you may not know this. This is optional. You do not have to do this, but it's something I like to do with this chart and some other charts as well. When you come down to the use EMA filter, cross filter, it's set to true. The default setting is 20. I like to use 8. So you could see that once a crossover occurs, it filtered out this trade, which was 6 bars after the crossover, and then the 8th bar right here. So if you set it to 20, you may have not got that green trade. But it did come down. It missed money management by 1 tick. And then you had this interesting stop and reversal, which was actually below the entry of the short. So if you adjust the entry, we use our typical adjustment. You would adjust it up 2 ticks, work around the key level, 1686.1. Anyway, it gets long and it jumps up, hitting its target at 1687.8. And that is power of quitting. So the Russell 2 trades to get to its goals. If you wanted an additional Russell trade, there was a SubZero trade. This long trade was happening while we were in the Spotlight trade, so would not be interested in that. But then when that one fails and you get the short set up, and this is after that power of quitting blue trade finished, you have a nice SubZero trade here. The way I like to use SubZero is after I've completed my formal trade plans with Spotlight. That's a good approach, I think. And if you wanted an extra trade, you would have had this short right here. And if the first trade fails, you're able to take a second trade. And the second trade is pretty good odds. And it comes down and hits target 1 and then is going to stop out at money management. But another SubZero sets up not too much longer after, right here. And so you can take that trade as well. And you could see worked like a charm, almost getting to target 4. And a very profitable trade. And you could see how SubZero could really supercharge and juice up your results, especially when you get confident in it and its abilities to put you in front of the moves before they happen. The Dow E-mini took a couple trades also. The first trade coming here 8 minutes after the open. It's a typical short trade, and that's going to lose. So the market was not ready to go down yet, and that's going to lose 34 points. Then you have a new short right here, and that one's going to make 58 points if it can get to target 2, which it does. So in 2 trades, power of quitting is achieved, almost hitting target 3. But that's what we mean by quitting positive a majority of the time. That's why trade planning is so critical. This is just the basic plan that we use with pretty much all our futures day trading charts. This one here loses 34 points to start, but then is able to gain 58 points, which is power of quitting, a positive result in 2 trades. And that's exactly what we want with Spotlight. There were some SubZero opportunities on the YM as well. In this case, if you were trading the Spotlight trade plan with YM, I'm not sure you would have been able to take advantage of this setup because the Spotlight trade came in here. This was the trade that got to power of quitting, and the SubZero trade would have been an add-on. Of course, if you're just doing SubZero, then of course you would have had it right there, and it was a nice trade as well. It took advantage of the same move, just got in a little bit after the Spotlight trade. Spotlight got in sooner. And then there hasn't been any SubZero. There may be one coming up. We're keeping an eye on this for a possible afternoon trade. We'll see what that happens. On the NQ, using the 4-point momentum bar or 16 range on Ninja. First trade came here at 8:41. Remember, that's 9:41 New York time, 8:41 Chicago time, exchange time. Gets short and makes fast work getting to its power of quitting. Well, actually, it missed target 2. And remember, we want to get a target 2 winner or 2 money management winners and a positive result, which, you know, was a nice partial profit. And then it got long here, and that one rocketed up to all its targets. Spotlight's really good at picking up V-shaped reversals, as you can see this right here. And these 2 trades produced a very profitable session for the NQ this morning. SubZero had some real profitable late night, early morning, pre-market moves in the NQ. You could see some nice profitable trades. You could take advantage of active markets with SubZero even during off hours. This morning, you had a long trade which was going to falter. Okay, so that's a losing trade, but it turns into a winning trade, and that's the beauty of SubZero. Sometimes the move in one direction is a head fake, but then the move in the opposite direction is the real deal. And that's why we're allowed to take 1 or 2 trades if the first trade fails, and it often cuts the risk down. So a little adjustment on the entry shaves off maybe 20% or 25% of the full risk on that first trade. The full risk would have been 44 ticks, which is 11 points. So you figure approximately 9 points perhaps losing there, but it makes 47 ticks to target 2. So that sequence there is definitely a power of quitting sequence and a nice positive result. With SubZero, some additional trades beyond the SPT formal trade plan. And on the ES, this is a 6-tick momentum bar, 6 range, 1.5 point momentum bar, 6 range on Ninja. It's amazing how slow the ES seems to have been lately, although there's really good volume. But starting right at 8:30, you could see a long setup here. Remember, on the ES, you could trade multiple positions, and you could take profit even at target 1, especially when it's a good size, in this case, 3.5 points. It misses target 1 and hits money management and stops out at break even. So you need to take 1 more trade. You get the short. So if it gets to money management, that's the minimum for power of quitting. And it does, but then it keeps going. And it hits a nice target 2. That's 22 ticks, so that's 5.5 points. Target 1 was 3.5 points. And it hits target 3, which is 7.5 points, $50 a point, and then stops out. The power of quitting with Spotlight on the ES as well. Very profitable morning. SubZero really tells a story of how slow the ES is, but a really nice trade. That was actually yesterday afternoon, so look at all these bars, but nothing to do on SubZero until later this morning. So you had a SubZero trade this morning, which was very profitable, as you could see, hitting a perfect target 2 before stopping out with its trailer. And just, you could see how few bars there are. So the market's really slowing down, but the whole point is it's about quality, not quantity, and you could follow the line, and you can kind of tell when it's getting below that -20 and getting poised to give you a setup, and when it does, you can count on it being pretty reliable, as we've seen with SubZero over and over again. There were plenty of other great trades today. Crude oil's been a bit dicey. We had a losing crude oil session yesterday after the crude oil inventory report with our counterpunch trader approach, and that one never loses, very rarely. Yesterday was a rare losing session. Today you had a long trade here starting right at 9 with the 5-tick momentum bar or 5 range on Ninja. And that's typically a nice setup with the dots right on that 50 moving average. It wasn't really able to gain any traction and instead flipped over to short, cutting the loss significantly and then pushing down to target 2 for a modest gain, and power of quitting didn't get much further, and that was a good time to stop. But there, you know, again, power of quitting is taking what the market wants to give you while allowing you to quit with a positive result on most sessions. Marginally positive with crude here. And again, you're done with power of quitting. Of course, you've got SubZero if you want additional trades. So with SubZero and crude, this trade here was an add-on trade. The trade that got to power of quitting was a stop and reverse trade here. And then this one on SubZero would have been a break-even trade, hitting money management. Of course, your stop is working around the key level, but I would typically make sure I've got it locked in. It's gone, you know, halfway between target 1 and target 2, so I'm at least interested in covering my costs here. I'd pretty much ignore that key level adjustment the way I do things. So that would have been a break-even, and then it gets short. And I want to show you this because you need to be aware that as reliable as SubZero is, there are losing trades, of course. And the worst case scenario would be 2 losing trades in a row. And that happens here on crude. And needless to say that any time you get sideways, choppy action without any range, you run a bigger risk of losing trades. That's just the way trading is. So here you have a short trade that stops and reverses to long, and that's what 2 losing trades in a row looks like. That's the worst case scenario for SubZero, which is still very well controlled. You know, this might happen a few times a week with SubZero on a given chart, maybe once in a session, maybe 2 or 3 sessions out of the week you might see this. But if you just stay with it, there's another SubZero that happens as the markets are, you know, getting later in the day and slowing down. There's this long setup here. That one works like a charm. Getting past target 3 and then stopping out. There were other great trades with gold futures and unleaded gas, some excellent Spotlight and SubZero setups. This beautiful short trade here on unleaded gas. Although unleaded gas would have gotten to power of quitting earlier if you're starting right at 9 with the long trade that loses. But then the short trade that wins, let's see, the long trade loses 57 ticks. The short trade wins 72 ticks. And of course, if you kept trading, you would have had this little thing here, which was a loss, but then a big winner. Anyway, let's take a look at some Forex examples. So the pound Aussie normally starting at 8:30, got to wait for the report to come out, the retail sales, which it does, and there's a long trade here. And that ends up losing. So the first trade of the day loses 22 pips plus spread on the pound Aussie, but the trade plan is still active and going. You have another long trade, and that's 22 pips to target 2, and it gets there, but then it keeps going. So you remember, you're able to scale out at each target, 14 pips, 22 pips, 30 pips, 38 pips, and then a trailer that stops out right in here, unless you're keeping it below the spike of the bar, which is something that I think is a good idea to do. You want to try to hide your stop below support, let the price action reveal that to you. And if you did that, you could have stayed in the trade for a slightly larger move up to about here. But all in all, those 2 trades, power of quitting. And of course, our euro yen, this is a 6 pip momentum bar starting right at 8:30 as well. And this is the reaction of the retail sales. There's no setups to be had. We don't get in sync. We're waiting for a new setup. So we'll let this trade finish, and then you get a short here. So the first trade of the day at 8:49 New York time gets short. Nice size on this trade. You're going to ignore target 1. Remember, anything less than 10 pips we're not interested in. That's 90 ticks or 9 pips. So you're going to target 2 as your first take profit. It hits it. Money management pushes down, gets through all the other targets as well for 23 pips, 30 pips, and then stops out right here. And a beautiful one and done session with the euro yen. Those aren't the only pairs you can trade with Spotlight. Those are the two that I follow with the formal Spotlight Power Trader trade plan. There are others, but SubZero works really well with Forex, just like it does with futures. Just look at the Euro US, the last trade today, getting to a 15 pip target 2, just going backwards. There's another one. This one was at 950 this morning, going through all its targets for a beautiful trade. There's 2 SubZero trades today, going back even further, just going backwards. This was, well, still today. This is after the retail report, and 3 beautiful SubZero trades in a row on the Euro US, and maybe it's time to start booking your trip to Europe. Look at the exchange rate, $1.16 to the euro. What a bargain. And a quick look at the pound US with SubZero. There's some really nice trading going on in here, and you could use some of the tricks that I've been teaching in the trade room, where you've got the exhaustion dots lining up on this 20 simple moving average, because they could really take advantage of some great trend moves, and I've kind of taught how to do that. But even if you're just waiting for your out-of-the-box SubZero setup, just clicking backwards, you had a long trade here at 1047, hitting all its targets perfectly. A short trade here, coming down, hitting all its targets, or just barely missing target 4. But clearly 2 nice winners in a row, just clicking backwards. And you had this also, the reaction to the retail sales report. You might have got caught up in a little long trade here, which would have lost, but remember, you want to work around the spike, so a little adjustment above that spike would have kept you flat on that trade. So remember, price action does reveal. This is the power of your brain and your eyeballs, which is always going to be better than automation, because automation doesn't know how to make those kind of decisions, but we learn how to do that as traders. So you could see just fantastic trading today, and the Spotlight Power Trader doing what it was designed to do, and SubZero also giving us those extra trades of opportunity, juicing up our returns with just real high percentage setups. You don't want to abuse it and overuse it, but it's really important to work with it for a while and understand how it works, so that you can build your own belief and confidence and take advantage of those high percentage trades of opportunity that SubZero will give you. I hope you enjoyed this video, everybody. Everyone have a great weekend. This is TJ with Netpicks and the Spotlight Power Trader.